So today we're going to talk about compositions of functions. Okay, and there's a couple if-then statements here. This is basically talking about what we talked about yesterday in terms of where do we find the inverse function. And it's saying that if x is between -1 and +1, and y is between -half a pi and half a pi, then sine of the inverse of sine of x just equals x. And arcsine of sine of y just equals y. Again, this is what we were talking about, the unit circle from half a pi to -half a pi. And remember, on the unit circle, the furthest it goes out is the 0.10. Okay, this also works for cosine. If cosine, or x value, is between -1 and +1, and the y value is between 0 pi and pi, and that's what we talked about yesterday for the arc cosine, then the cosine of the arc cosine of x is x, or the arc cosine of the cosine of y is y. And then the same thing for tangent. Remember, tangent is the same as sine, where it goes from half a pi to -half a pi. Remember, if I'm going too fast, you can always pause this, okay? Basically, what these are doing are these are inverse functions of each other. Adding and subtracting are inverse functions. Multiplying and dividing are inverse functions. Squaring and square rooting are inverse functions. So what this is doing, if you think about working from the inside out, what is sine at 5 pi over 3? Again, use your unit circle. And the sine at 5 pi over 3 is the y value, or -√3 over 2. Then it is asking us to find the arcsine, or the inverse of -√3 over 2. Well, remember, arcsine comes from this part of the unit circle. Sine is -√3 over 2 back at 5 pi over 3, or at 300 degrees. The problem is we can't list this as our answer, because remember yesterday we talked about how arcsine has to be from half a pi to -half a pi, or from 90 degrees to -90 degrees. So we need to rewrite this 300 as -60 degrees, or -pi over 3. They're still the same answers, they're just written differently. Okay? So let's try another one. What is the arc cosine of the cosine of 3 pi? So again, work your way inside out. What is cosine at 3 pi? Well, think about this. 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, we're right here. Cosine is 1, -1. So what is the arc cosine of -1? Where is cosine equal to -1? Well, back here again. This time we would say at 1 pi, or at 180 degrees. Is that okay? It is, because the inverse, remember, of cosine has to be between 0 and 180 degrees. Okay. So why are we going to use this, or why would this be helpful? Well, it's not as easy when we start mixing the trig signs. So if you look at this one, find the tangent of the arc cosine of 2 over 3. Well, tangent and cosine don't work together. They kind of do on the same triangle, but not like this. So the first thing we have to do is we have to decide, where is the cosine of 2 over 3? Well, if we created a triangle, when is cosine positive? Well, cosine is positive over here and over here. But remember, if we're using arc cosine, I can only use quadrants 1 and 2. So I am going to create my triangle then in quadrant 1, and there is theta. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so the cosine is 2, the hypotenuse is 3, and now a squared plus b squared equals c squared. b squared equals 9 minus 4, which is 5, and b is the square root of 5. So I used this information to draw my triangle. Now I'm going to answer what they asked me. Find the tangent of this triangle. Tangent of theta is TOA, and that is opposite over adjacent. Done. So we're using the inside to create our triangle and then finding the answer. Okay? So let's try another one together. Let's find the cosine of the arc sine of negative 3 over 5. Arc sine or inverse sine happens only in quadrants 1 and 4. If sine is negative, then I definitely am making my triangle down in quadrant 4. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, negative 3 over 5. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, or hopefully by now you have this one memorized, 3, 4, 5 triangle. I have used the inside part of this and what I know about inverse sine to create my triangle, and now I can answer the question based off of the triangle. So this is step 1. Step 2 is find the cosine of this triangle, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay. All right, you try one on your own. Example 5. Find the tangent of the inverse cosine of 1/3. B squared equals 8, b equals the square root of 8, which is square root of 4 times the square root of 2, or 2 square roots of 2. Now that I have my triangle complete, I can answer the question. They are asking me to find the tangent of this function. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, or 2 square roots of 2. Okay? So using these composition of functions to help you finish out what you need is really all we're doing today.